Hey peeps! Welcome back to my channel, and if this is your first time here, a very warm welcome. My name is Amma, and today I am joining you with another video, Driving for Change. So I'll be talking about the role of language in education, as well as the extent at which the South African education system understands this role. I'll not be doing this alone. I am joined in studio by one of my peeps to talk more on this issue. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do so that you can join me on my journey to create unity and change in society, and this way you'll be able to listen in on my interviews and conversations with the aim to create unity and change in our society. Thank you so much, Phakamani, for joining me.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure being invited. Thank you also.
Thank you. So, as a linguist, what role do you think language plays in education?
Language plays a huge role in education. The first one is it plays a role of access to education. So for me, if I'm Xhosa and then in order for me to access education, I must speak fluent English, then I will not feel welcome within that university that wants me to speak a certain language which I'm not fluent in, and it cuts my
Your opportunities.
Yeah, it cuts my opportunities, or it cuts my interaction, and also it cuts my ability to perform because I cannot understand fully what is being said. So the role that can language play, which is not actually happening, language provide access. Language, the dissemination of information within the education matters, because if I'm writing a paper that I do not, okay, let's go back. So if you look at the question paper that is used in matric, or a question paper that was used in our time, even now, question paper for Western Cape, it's English and Afrikaans. It's English and Afrikaans. So that means learners from the previous marginalized languages, which are indigenous languages, are cutted out in terms of better understanding and have better chances of mastering the test or the exams. So the issue there is through the language that is used in order to examine student. So learners who do not understand English thorough are not stupid, but because they were not given in their own language that they understand.
Absolutely.
So that's what I will say. And another thing is affirmation, because language is not only a means to communicate, it's a means to culture, to preservation of the way of life. So when I come to an institution and I say that my language is not spoken mostly, but where the region that it is in, it's majority of the language that is supposed to be spoken. So I'll feel not part of, I will not feel belonging, I will not want to even when I graduate to be part of the university, because the university is not allowing me to be myself.
And that even lowers your self-esteem as a person. Absolutely. Okay, my next question. Do you think every language has a role to play in education?
For me, I think every language has a role to play in education. Why I'm saying so is, for me, I believe that education means service to Africa, or I can say, to be specific, in South Africa. Language means education to us means service to South Africa. So what I mean about that, when I mean that education is a service, education is a service to service the people that we come from. So you might be a Betty person, I might be a Xhosa person, but in the end of the day, when I receive this kind of information, I must disseminate it to my people in the language that they understand. And secondly, if you are doing medicine in Cape Town, you're going to deal with Xhosa patients. How will you not know? How will you communicate if you are not given a course that is preparing you to be able to communicate with the patients? And also, if there is no communication of a certain language that is dominant in a demographic of sort of, let's say in Cape Town, if you're going to teach in Cape Town, how are you not going to do Afrikaans and isiXhosa and think that you are going to able to maneuver yourself within or understand the learners or anything that, okay, or how are you going to be able to communicate with the learners as an educator? So when I mean that education means service to Africa, I mean that there are languages. We are a nation and we are supposed to serve our people. Our people are from different backgrounds. So it wouldn't be equal if we say some languages must not. For example, the Khoi languages, as much as the Khoi language were destroyed or are becoming extinct, when we speak of the role of the Khoi language, we'll go back to and understand that they have an artifact, or let's say arts where they draw and what. So their language is embedded in their culture. So if you say their language is not important, so remove them from the museum and what, because language carries many aspects of a culture.
Absolutely. Given that South Africa has 11 official languages, do you think the South African education system understands the importance of every single language in South Africa, or does it focus mainly on English as the global language?
For me, I would say it mostly focuses on English as a global language, but at the same time, it is trying, but it's not much that is doing, because if you can draw from the Africans, so for Africans to develop or to fully develop, it only took 10 years, from 1948 up to 58. So for that to happen, people who are from the Afrikaner community gathered together and mobilized the resources, and it was the National Party which was in power at the time. So they were able to empower Africans into what it is today. But if you look at, as I come back to the second one where it focuses on English, but if you look now, we have a black government, but you see that the previously disadvantaged languages, which are the black languages, have not yet regained its status, or there is no development that has happened. Because the reason I use that example is because I want to highlight these two governments. There was a government which was for the Afrikaner nationalism, and then there is a government which is for a rainbow nation, or let's say which empowers black people. But it's actually not doing it. It's been 25 years, but you can't find a person who is fluent in their own languages flourishing within the education, the law, the what. It's always those who can speak fluent English that are going to, be fluent. And those who will get jobs are those who have fluent English. So there is a marginalization that is currently happening. As much as they are doing, they are trying to develop them or do something about that. And as I said, that looking at the basic education, you could find that the example that I like is if you watch Gomorrah. I don't know if you watch Gomorrah, but okay, so I'm gonna share this story. So there was a debate in Gomorrah. So that debate, there is a boy who's called Teddy. Teddy is a typical Kasi boy who struggles to speak English and who has a low confidence in speaking because he knows that he doesn't understand. So what happened there is he got a translator. So what is important is the content, not the language that is spoken through. So as he got a translator, he was able to debate. And that was an equal debate. Because he could be able to express views in his own language and then translate it. So what I will say is the issue of translation is not yet fully developed within the basic, which is what is needed. In Cape Town, you will need to have a question paper that has 3 languages. I'm not saying only 3, but as a way of showing the demographics that you have 3 dominating languages within. So what I'm saying is they are trying, but it's still not there. Then when you come to English, so for English, even in high school and in university, when you come through, you have NPT. What's the role of NPT? Isn't it for you to ask you about your English? What? Why don't we have African language NPT, where we test you
Absolutely.
your understanding in African in order to have access to certain things. But because African languages are not yet empowered to to be used in a broader sense, so they, as much as there is a need, but they see that there is no need to develop or use these within the system, because we could have had courses where they only specifically deal with the development of African languages within university, so that you can flourish. But that says a lot about the skewness or the marginalization of African languages. If you look at the policies of universities that are in line with the Constitution of South Africa, which means the previously marginalized languages are supposed to be used as a mode of communication and used within the university as a language of, what's this thing? Not as a language of
not as the main.
Not as the main.
Yeah.
But as a sort of a language that is able to be accessible to a certain people who cannot fully understand the English one.
Yes.
So as to make it not only about English.
Yes.
Because when, for example, in modern schools, you will get a feel that even though Afrikaans is not fully part of curriculum, but you will see that people are teaching and there are a lot of materials that are accessible in Afrikaans, or sometimes they are able to use both languages to communicate. For example, if in university you could get a course that is translated in your own language, at the same time there is a course, there is the bilingualism, or let's say even if it's multilingualism, because majority of the time people always focus on resources that it's gonna cost, it's gonna do what, it's gonna do what. Isn't it about developing the language so that you can develop the socio-economic realities of these people who forms part of the majority of South Africa?
True.
Because another issue that when you look through at the languages aside of English, you'll see that the languages that are moved aside or that are marginalized are the people that constitute a majority within the country. So what is it saying about the nature of South Africa, or are we really in a democratic state, or we are still transitioning after 26 years of democracy? So
absolutely, that says a lot. It processes a lot of questions. So based on what you've just said, how does this disadvantages learners who don't speak English as a home language?
Okay, so the first thing that it does to them, it makes them feel as not part of South Africa, or as not part of the curriculum, or the curriculum was formed in their absence. Because as we had the Bantu education system, which was solely focusing on developing black people only for certain things, or let's say
manual
for
skills.
So that simply means that as much as we are in a democratic state, or we are in a multilingual society where every language is recognized by the Constitution, but there is a lack of implementation of those policies that stand against, because language, there is a theoretical framework that treats language as a resource, and also treats language as a right. So there is a language, there is a right to language, and there is a language, there is a right to language. There are language rights. So a right to language means that you have a right to a language that you to be tested, or to be anything that is done, it must be done in a language that you best understands. Then there is a right, there is a language right. Language right deals with the bigger scale of, it's not about the individual, but it's about the people who speak that language, or who are from that, who are going to be stripped of their language as a means of communication, and their language as a means of culture, and their language as a means of wisdom and profound. And as we are dealing with the basic education, if you look at history, so would you say when you are teaching isiXhosa history, you must teach it in English. Or when you are teaching Sepedi history, or when you're speaking about the lineage of kings, or you're speaking about a certain people or a certain history of a people, then the language that you are going to disseminate this information, it's also what's going to give. It's also what's going to give them the meaning to the students.
Yes.
And also, them not having enough materials available to them in their own language. For example, physical science books that are written in Xhosa.
Yeah.
But also another thing that is happening, there is a stigma that is attached, and this stigma is not new. You cannot be shocked when you hear that there are black students or black learners or black parents who say, no, we don't want isiXhosa. What is it going to do for my child, and what. We can trace back that into when Afrikaans was what was put into the face of black people. So they are told that your language is useless. Your language is not found in working places. Your language is not gonna get you into university. Your language is not gonna bring food into the table. So do you see that already when you are at school, you are disadvantaged in many ways. And also there is another thing which is called a stigma that is upon the language. So as much as you want to be courageous, or you want to uplift your identity. But at the same time, there is a stigma attached to your identity, that your language, because language becomes part of identity, that your language is not developed enough to be this and that and that and that. So there are many windows of opportunity that are closed for people who do not speak English, and you can look at that. You can look through that using the unemployment. It's the youth that is unemployed. Who forms part of the majority of the youth that is unemployed? Where do they come from? What language do they constitute? All of them, you can say that it's mostly learners or children from African languages background, or let's say black people to be specific, because African languages in South Africa are black languages. And the mere fact that black languages are disadvantaged and the black realities are backward, or they are they are still marginalized, or their socio-economic realities have not been developed, can be linked with the underdevelopment of their languages.
Yes, absolutely.
So from that perspective, I can say that treating English as a universal language and also using English as a tool to unify, that's not true, because if you can look at South Africa, having one language did not unify the country. Instead, it just
increases the
inequalities. So there is no correlation that using one language will mean success, will mean prosperity, will mean development of people. So if we want to develop the realities of black people, we must start with their languages.
What would you like the South African education system to do to ensure that it prioritizes every learner's home language?
The first thing that I would like the education department to do is to be able to okay. So let's start with the head, which is the Department of Higher Education. So if we start with the Department of Higher Education, it has much powers to implement the languages, or to implement what's in the Constitution. Where the Constitution has every child has a right to be taught in their own mother tongue, or in a language that they understand. So I would like South Africa to be more democratic in their approach, and to be more inclusive in their approach, and to be realistic, not to be optimistic, not to have good policies, but they are lacking the implementation. So as in higher education, also the head is given power to implement those policies. And we have language board within every university, but you will see that there is still a lack, because South Africa there is this thinking that having multilingual language, having it's a problem. It's backward. It costs a lot. it's not useful. What are this language going to do? The focus should not be there. The focus should be at the people on the ground, because taking this thing with the COVID, the president has been addressing us, but he has not been addressing the indigenous community of South Africa, but has been addressing, I can say, the white community, because not every single of his speeches are in any, even his mother tongue. I'm not saying he should do what, but there must be at least even translations of those speeches, because, for example, language for health. He said that COVID is this and that and that and that. How, if I have a granny who lives alone and doesn't understand these languages, who is going to disseminate the information to her so that she understands that my health is very important? So, from the perspective of language as a health matter, I think there's supposed to be many translation of the COVID issues or COVID pamphlet and what in every language, so that they do not lack access to health because of a barrier that is a language that is said that is thought to be universal, because English is not universal. You can even come up with the facts and come up with the statistics. So English is not universal. So I think we must also start there. Another thing that I would like the Department of Education to prioritize is to prioritize history and to prioritize the local history in their own languages. For example, if I teach isiXhosa, I must be able to, as I'm teaching isiXhosa language, to be able to chip in the history, the rich history of the development of isiXhosa, the lineage of kings, and everything that are beautiful, that have led to the building of the nation, but in a perspective of amaXhosa. Then if I'm teaching Zulu, I must be able to put in, so that our kids are not only looking at leaders who are not from their own backgrounds or far leaders, where they have the very same people who can relate to. So another thing that is discouraging learners to is learning about something that is not close to you, or something you cannot relate or use at a later stage.
Absolutely.
So another thing is this divide between township school and modern schools, where you find that you'll find a teacher at a community school teaching there and saying to kids who learn there that, okay, my kid will never learn here. So but let me stop there.
So in South Africa, high school learners or high school children have to learn all their subjects in English. Well, except those subjects that are considered as languages. And then so the learners that they do not speak English as a home language, they're not only faced with a challenge of having to comprehend the heavy content which the South African curriculum prescribes to them, but also they also have to worry about the issue of learning this new language. And so that creates inequalities, comparing a learner who speaks English as a home language. So this learner does not have to worry about learning the language as it is, but they can now create the time just to learn the content that the subject prescribes. And then you have this learner who does not speak English as a home language. So then that means they have to worry about two things. They have to worry about learning the language, and then they have to worry about learning the content which that subject prescribes. And how sad to know that majority of learners, as Phakamani said, majority of learners in our schools are Africans, and most of them don't speak English as a home language. The other problem is when these children don't even have the resources to learn this language, when they don't have adults or parents or people that know the language better to teach them. So we are advocating for the South African curriculum to be revised so that every learner learns the subjects in their home language. An example here is if a child speaks Tshivenda as a home language, then they should be able to learn natural science, history, life orientation, and all those other subjects in Chivenda. So the question of the day is, what are your thoughts on the use of every child's language in the classroom or in education? And how do you think the education system can ensure that every learner's home language is being used in the classroom? If you've enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you can join me on this movement for creating change in our society. Until we meet again next week Saturday. Bye!